Now today we'll be showing on how to remove and replace a fuse or relay box. You may be doing this because the vehicle was recently involved in a collision, or most likely you're doing some work and it's just in your way. So let's just get right to it. The first step is removing the negative and the positive terminals going to the battery. Now if your vehicle is relatively modern and has airbags, just wait at least 3 minutes before you continue. Okay. Now in this case we're dealing with the under hood fuse box. So the fuse box here and the engine compartment. The flip side is you may have to remove the fuse box inside the cabin, what's known as the under dash fuse box. The reason why I'm doing this, to be quite honest, is because this fuse box is a lot easier to film. I can place the camera at different angles, I can stand up and do this, it's more comfortable. If I did everything inside, the camera's scrunched in one corner, I'm banging my head against the steering wheel. But ultimately everything that you see here, you just apply to inside the cabin. The main thing, obviously, just make sure you disconnect the battery and wait at least 3 minutes because you don't want to take any chances. Now toward the left you'll see these brass looking connectors. This is for your battery and your alternator. So we'll start by loosening up these two fasteners, and this happens to be an 8mm fastener here. And before you remove the wiring, just take notice of the different color wires. So white is coming up to the right here and the black wire is coming up on the left, okay? And then this just slides out, and then I'll put the fastener back in so we don't lose it. Then, let me zoom out so you can see this. We have a few fasteners. You can see one right here. There's another one on the right, which you'll see in a second. These are 10mm fasteners. Now we do have a number of videos showing on how to test relays, starter relays, ignition relays, all that good stuff, and I'll include a link for a playlist that we have if you're curious on how to test those. But if you ever need to quickly test a fuse, you probably know this already, but just in case if you don't, just take a look at the arc. If this is broken, the fuse is bad, just needs to be replaced. You know, so they're easy enough to quickly check. So let's go ahead and remove this. Now just to give you a better view of what's going on here, underneath the fuse box you have wire looms and connectors going into the box. For example, you can see a large wire loom right there. And essentially you just find the wire loom and disconnect it. But just so you can see what's going on here, because as we all know there's a lot of videos that they quickly do something but you don't really see what they're doing, I want to give you a better view. So I'm going to remove this air box so you can see underneath what's going on and what we're doing. Now again, sometimes you may just have to sort of get this out of the way. You don't have to remove the fuse box. For example, recently we did some work on an Acura TL, which some of you may already know about, and very quickly we had to remove and replace the front cross member. And to do that, I had to buy an engine holder essentially. It's a big, large piece of metal bar that holds the engine in place, and when I was getting that set up, the fuse box was in the way. So I had to just slightly, I didn't have to remove it by any means, but I did have to just remove the fasteners just so I can slightly move it over. The last thing you want to do is, you know, crush one of these, obviously with the weight of an engine. Alright, now if you look closely enough, there's actually an undercover. And this is why I wanted to remove this airbox assembly so you can see this. But you see these tabs right here, 1, 2, 3. We have 3 on the opposite end, it looks like. So you need to remove this undercover first before you attempt to remove the wiring. So I just have a flathead. I want to make sure you guys can see this okay. I just have a flathead slowly and very carefully peel back. As you can see, it's a little flexible, these tabs. And I'll show you the opposite end in a moment. Actually, I could probably swing you over. Now I know it's a little dark, but again you can see it's starting to come off. There's a tab right here. And then another one right back here. Some people get stuck at this point. They don't know that there's an undercover. It's sort of hard to see. Put this away. But let's see if we can remove this here. Okay. And then once you get all of those tabs removed, you can start to peel back this cover. Now, you may be tempted to grab a screwdriver, for example, and start prying away. You don't want to do that because you can really start to nick up the plastic housing. Plus, if you push too far, you don't want to nick any wiring. You can use a plastic tool like this. This is an interior plastic removal kit. You see how easily it comes off, doesn't mark anything up. I'll include a link in the description box below. And before we remove the fuse box here from the vehicle, I just want to show you right underneath. As you can see, you have a number of harness connectors. So you're going to remove each harness connector one by one. Now, for example, right here, as you can see, where my thumb is, you're going to press up on the tab and pull. I can't do it from here right now, but you'll see it in a second. Pull up on the tab and pull on the body. Don't pull on the wiring. And you'll do that with every single harness connector, and then this entire fuse box comes right out. So again, where my thumb is, push in that tab. Okay, you can see that, and pull out. Okay, again right here, where the tab is, I'm not sure if you can see that, right here, you press in the tab, pull out, and just go through each one by one. And of course, it does take some time. This maybe took, maybe 4 minutes to disconnect everything here. I have one last one. Hold on, as you can see, sometimes it can be a little hard. You gotta find the tab. There we go. Okay, there's your fuse box. So as you can see, not too difficult to remove. The hardest part is certainly just the working room. With these modern vehicles, you have to make the room to make this happen. This isn't that bad on the Honda here, but nonetheless, that's really a lot of times the hardest part. On the flip side, let's say you are replacing your fuse box with a brand new one. Look at all the grease on here. So you want to make note and reapply the grease. This is dielectric grease, which is silicone grease. It's waterproof, it's inert, and this is what you want to use on your electrical connections. So I'm just going to reinstall everything. We'll start the car, make sure everything works, and we'll wrap it up. Now, if you're worried about mixing and matching the harness connectors, in other words, putting them in the wrong spot, you can't. They're all made for a specific bay. So don't worry about that, but it's always a good idea to take a picture, a quick video with your phone, just so you don't lose your concentration and your mark and things like that. You never know. You could be doing something happens outside, you go see what's going on, you come back and you kind of lost your concentration. So it does not hurt to take pictures and videos. Once you're done, delete them and move on. And before I attach this bottom cover, I just want to double check one more time, make sure everything is nice and secure. When you reinstall these harness connectors, you will hear a clicking sound, and that's what you want to hear. That's a secure connection. And you don't need to over tighten the fasteners. They're only around 9, maybe 10 foot-pounds from the factory. Don't forget, on here, for example, on the right hand side, it's plastic, so don't over tighten the fasteners. And then reinstall your alternator and your starter wires. Again, in this case, the white wire was up front. Let's see, there we go. Okay. Now, before I reinstall the airbox, start the vehicle, and just check the systems, you may be thinking, how do I know which systems are hooked up to this fuse and relay box? Well, it's easy enough. Just take the top cover and rotate it, and you'll see the nerve center, everything that's hooked up to this box. Now, typically, if we're talking about the under hood fuse box or relay box, you're talking about rear defroster, blower motor inside the vehicle, high and low beams, things like that. And very quickly, you can see that here. So for example, if you see 10 amp, 10 amp, 15 amp, so on and so forth, that happens to do with the fuses here on the right. So this is testing your low, your high beams for the headlights, for example. Now these symbols right here These are relays. That's a relay, 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 relay. So for example, that's your blower motor for inside the cabin, rear defroster, cooling fan. So you can test all of these things once you get everything up and running. So from inside the vehicle, we can check the blower motor. Works okay. The AC compressor, which is clicking on. Rear defroster. The hazards, the lights, all that good stuff works. So we're in good shape. Any questions, comments, please leave it below. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.